Katie Morrison pressed her small face against the cold window of the space shuttle. Her breath made little clouds on the glass as she stared at the most amazing sight she had ever seen. The Zenith Academy looked like something from a dream. Tall, towers made of shining crystal reached up toward the stars. Bright lights danced around the buildings like fireflies. Strange ships moved through the air in perfect lines. The 12-year-old girl felt her stomach twist with fear and excitement. She was about to become the first human child to attend the most famous school in the galaxy. Kids from 47 different alien worlds came here to learn. And now, somehow, she was going to be one of them. The shuttle pilot, a friendly man named Captain Rogers, looked back at her with kind eyes. "Pretty amazing, isn't it?" he said. "I've been flying out here for 10 years, and it still takes my breath away." Katie nodded, but could not speak. Her throat felt tight. Back on Earth, everyone had been so proud when she got accepted. The news reporters had called her humanity's youngest ambassador. Her teachers had thrown a big party. Her neighbors had wished her luck. But now, actually seeing this place, she felt very small and very alone. The shuttle docked with a soft bump. Katie picked up her single bag and followed Captain Rogers through the airlock. The moment she stepped into the academy, she knew she was somewhere completely different from Earth. The air felt different somehow, cleaner and lighter. The walls seemed to glow with their own soft light. Strange music played quietly in the background, beautiful, but unlike anything she had ever heard. Other students walked through the halls, and Katie tried not to stare. She saw a tall girl with blue skin and 4 arms carrying a stack of books. A boy who looked like he was made of living crystal floated past without touching the ground. Something that looked like a friendly spider, the size of a person, clicked and whistled as it moved along the ceiling. A voice spoke from nowhere and everywhere at once. "Katie Morrison, please report to Dormitory Section 7 for room assignment." Katie looked around, confused. Captain Rogers smiled and pointed down a hallway. "Follow the blue lights," he said. "They'll take you where you need to go." He patted her shoulder gently. "You'll do fine, kid. Your parents are proud of you, and so am I." The blue lights in the floor began to pulse in a line leading down the hall. Katie waved goodbye to Captain Rogers and followed them. Other students watched her as she passed. Some seemed curious. Others looked surprised. A few whispered to each other in languages she could not understand. The lights led her to a door marked with symbols she had never seen before. As she approached, the door slid open with a quiet hiss. Inside, she found a room that was bigger than her entire house back on Earth. One side was clearly meant for her, with a bed and desk that looked normal. The other side had strange furniture that seemed to be made for someone very different. "So you are the human everyone is talking about." Katie jumped and turned around. Standing in the doorway was the most unusual person she had ever seen. The girl was tall and thin, with bright blue skin that seemed to shine like scales. She had 4 arms instead of 2, and her eyes were large and golden. When she spoke, her voice came from a small device attached to her throat. "I am HFY, the girl said, walking into the room. "I am your roommate. I must say, I am not pleased with this arrangement." Katie felt her cheeks grow hot. "I'm Katie," she said quietly. "I'm sorry if you don't want to room with me." HFY made a sound that might have been a laugh, but not a nice one. "Want has nothing to do with it. I requested a roommate from a civilized species. Instead, they gave me a primitive mammal who barely knows how to use fire." The words hit Katie like a punch to the stomach. She had known that some aliens looked down on humans, but hearing it said so directly made her eyes fill with tears. She turned away quickly, not wanting HFY to see. "I see I have upset you," HFY said, and her voice was not quite as harsh. "I suppose that is unfair. You cannot help what you are. But you must understand, my people have been traveling between stars for thousands of years. We have built cities that float in space and machines that can think. Your species has only just learned to leave your own world." Katie unpacked her few belongings in silence. Everything she had brought seemed so simple compared to the strange devices HFY had scattered around her side of the room. Her clothes looked plain and ugly next to the flowing, color-changing garments hanging in her roommate's closet. That evening, Katie went to the dining hall for dinner. The room was enormous, with tables arranged in sections for different types of beings. She got her food from a machine that somehow knew to give her things humans could eat, then looked around for somewhere to sit. Every table seemed to be full of aliens talking and laughing together. Katie walked slowly through the room, hoping someone might invite her to join them. Instead, conversations stopped when she passed. She heard whispers and saw pointing fingers. Finally, she found an empty table in a corner and sat down alone. Her dinner tasted good, but she could barely swallow it. She missed her parents so much it hurt. Her father was a ship captain stationed far away, and her mother was a scientist studying alien plants on another world. They had both been so excited about her acceptance to the academy. How could she tell them that she was already failing? "Look, everyone," said a voice from behind her. "The primitive human is eating alone. How sad." Katie turned around and saw a boy who looked like he was made of gold. His skin actually glowed with a soft light, and his eyes were the color of sunshine. He was beautiful in a way that made her feel even more plain and ordinary. "I am Thamer," the boy said, and his voice was like music. "My people are called Celestials. We are known throughout the galaxy for our wisdom and beauty. Tell me, human, what is your species known for?" Katie's face burned with shame. She could not think of anything to say. What were humans known for? They were new to space travel. They did not have amazing technology or magical powers. They were just ... ordinary. "I thought so," Thamer said with a laugh that sounded like bells ringing. "Perhaps you should return to your little planet before you embarrass yourself further." Other students had gathered to watch. Katie saw HFY among them, looking uncomfortable but not saying anything to help. The golden boy and his friends laughed as they walked away, leaving Katie alone with her cold dinner and hot tears. That night, Katie lay in her bed and stared at the ceiling. Through the window, she could see strange stars and patterns she did not recognize. Everything here was beautiful and wonderful, and completely alien. She felt like a bug that had somehow crawled into a palace. Maybe Thamer was right. Maybe she should go home before she made things worse. She touched the small stone pendant her grandmother had given her before she died. It was the only thing she had that connected her to her family, to Earth, to everything she understood. "Grandma," she whispered into the darkness, "I don't think I can do this." But even as she said the words, she remembered her father's voice. On the day she left Earth, "Morrisons don't quit, Katie," he had said. "We might bend, but we don't break." She closed her eyes and tried to sleep, not knowing that her real adventure was just beginning. The next few weeks at Zenith Academy were the hardest of Katie's life. Every morning, she woke up hoping things would get better. Every night, she went to sleep disappointed and hurt. The alien students seemed to take pleasure in making her feel stupid and unwelcome. In her first class, Advanced Space Mathematics, the teacher was a creature that looked like a floating brain with tentacles. Professor Crix spoke in numbers and symbols that made Katie's head spin, while her classmates solved problems in seconds. Katie struggled to understand even the basic concepts. "Miss Morrison," Professor Crix said one day, his tentacles waving in what might have been annoyance, "perhaps you could tell us the solution to this simple equation?" Katie looked at the board where strange symbols danced and changed shape. Other students snickered quietly. She felt heat rise to her cheeks as she realized she had no idea what any of it meant. "I don't know," she whispered. "Of course you don't," said a voice from the back of the room. It was Grixter, a massive student whose people looked like walking rocks. Humans only learned to count past 10 when they ran out of fingers and toes. The whole class erupted in laughter. Even Professor Crix made a sound that might have been amusement. Katie wanted to disappear into her chair. She spent the rest of the class staring at her hands, trying not to cry. Lunchtime was even worse. The dining hall had become Katie's daily torture chamber. She would get her food and look for somewhere to sit, but every table seemed to have an invisible sign that said, "No humans allowed." She had started eating in empty classrooms or outside in the garden areas, but even there, she was not safe from cruel comments. One day, as she sat under a tree that had silver leaves and sang soft songs, Thamer appeared with his group of followers. The golden boy seemed to glow brighter when he was being mean, as if cruelty gave him energy. "Look what we have here," Thamer sighed, his musical voice dripping with false sweetness. "The little human is hiding from civilization again. How fitting." Katie tried to ignore them and keep eating, but Thamer sat down across from her without being invited. His friends formed a circle around them, blocking any escape routes. "I have been thinking about humans," Thamer continued. "My people have studied your species from a distance. Do you know what we discovered?" Katie did not answer, but Thamer kept talking anyway. "Humans are the only intelligent species in the galaxy that still fights wars against their own kind. Even the most primitive civilizations we know learn to work together before they reach the stars. But not humans. You are too stupid and violent to achieve true peace." "That's not true," Katie said quietly, but her voice shook. "Oh, but it is," Thamer replied with a laugh. "Your people destroy their own planet with pollution and waste. They hate each other for having different skin colors or believing different things. They are like animals pretending to be civilized. The words hurt worse than any physical blow." Katie knew there was some truth in what he said, even though it was not the whole story. Humans did have problems. They did fight sometimes, but they were also capable of great kindness and love and courage. "At least we try," Katie said, her voice getting stronger. "At least we keep working to be better." Thamer's perfect features twisted into an ugly smile. "Better? Your entire species is a cosmic accident, a mistake that somehow learned to use. Tools. The only reason you were allowed into this academy is because the Galactic Council felt sorry for you." Before Katie could respond, he stood up and walked away with his friends. But their laughter followed her for the rest of the day. The worst part came during physical education class. All students had to attend, regardless of their species' abilities. The gymnasium was a marvel of engineering, with different areas for different types of beings. There were low-gravity zones for the bird-like avians, high-pressure areas for the deep-sea abyssal, and everything in between. Instructor Vexnall was a six-legged creature who moved like a giant insect. She believed that physical activity built character and brought different species together. Unfortunately, it mostly gave the alien students new ways to show off while making Katie feel inadequate. Today's lesson was about traditional combat forms. Each species was supposed to demonstrate their people's ancient fighting styles. Katie watched in amazement as her classmates performed incredible feats. The Vorthans moved through the air like dancers, their four arms creating beautiful patterns that were also deadly weapons. The crystalline students made their bodies as hard as diamonds and moved like living statues. The energy-based Etherians turned themselves into pure light, appearing and disappearing at will. When Katie's turn came, the entire class fell silent. She stood in the center of the gymnasium, feeling smaller than an ant under the gaze of dozens of alien eyes. Her heart pounded so hard, she was sure everyone could hear it. "Well, Miss Morrison?" Instructor Vexenol asked. "What traditional human combat form will you demonstrate?" Katie's mind went blank. She thought about the self-defense classes her grandfather had taught her, but they seemed so simple and crude compared to what she had just witnessed. How could basic punches and kicks compare to beings who could fly or turn into energy or control gravity with their minds? I don't really have anything special to show," Katie stammered. The silence that followed was deafening. Then, slowly, the laughter began. It started with quiet chuckles and grew into loud guffaws that echoed through the entire gymnasium. Students pointed at her and whispered to each other in their alien languages. Katie's face burned with shame as she realized that once again she had proven herself to be exactly what they thought she was, a primitive. Embarrassment. Thamer's voice cut through the laughter like a golden knife. "Behold, everyone, the pinnacle of human evolution, a species so advanced that they have no fighting traditions beyond hitting each other with sticks." Even some of the more polite students were smiling now. Katie felt tears threatening to spill from her eyes, but she refused to give them the satisfaction of seeing her cry. She walked to the edge of the gymnasium and sat down, pretending to watch the other demonstrations, while inside she felt like she was dying. That night, back in her room, Katie sat by the window and stared out at the alien stars. Zex High was at a study group with other students. Katie had not been invited, even though they were studying subjects she was struggling with. She was always alone now, always the outsider, always the one who did not belong. She pulled out her communication device and started to record a message to her parents. But after staring at the blank screen for several minutes, she turned it off without saying anything. How could she tell them that their daughter, their pride and joy, was failing at everything? How could she admit that maybe the aliens were right about humans being inferior? Katie touched the small stone pendant her grandmother had given her. It felt warm against her fingers, warmer than it should have been. For just a moment, she thought she saw something flicker in its surface, like a tiny flame deep inside the stone. But when she looked closer, it was just an ordinary rock again. "I don't know what to do, Grandma," she whispered to the empty room. "I don't know how to prove that humans are worth anything." Outside her window, the alien city sparkled with lights and wonders she might never understand. Katie felt like she was drowning in a sea of superiority and contempt, with no one to throw her a rope. She did not know that her darkest hour was almost over, and that soon she would discover something that would change not just her life, but the way the entire galaxy saw humanity. All she knew was that tomorrow would bring more classes, more humiliation, and more proof that she did not belong among the stars. That night, Katie could not sleep. She lay in her bed staring at the ceiling, while Zex High snored softly on the other side of the room. The day's humiliation played over and over in her mind, like a bad movie she could not turn off. Every laugh, every sneer, every cruel word echoed in her thoughts. She got up quietly and walked to the window. The alien city spread out below her like a jeweled carpet. Ships moved between the buildings like glowing fish swimming through a coral reef. Everything was beautiful and strange, and completely beyond her understanding. Katie felt so alone that it hurt inside her chest. She missed her parents terribly, but she could not bring herself to call them. What would she say? That their daughter was a failure? That sending her here had been a mistake? That maybe the aliens were right about humans being too primitive for the galaxy? Her fingers found the small stone pendant hanging around her neck. Her grandmother had given it to her just before she died 2 years ago. It was not much to look at, just a gray stone carved with the shape of a person sitting in a peaceful pose. Her grandmother had called it very old and very special, but Katie had never understood what she meant. Your great-great-grandmother brought this from the old country, Grandma Mary had told her with serious eyes. The women in our family have always been fighters, Katie. Not with fists or weapons, but with something deeper. When the time comes, you will know what to do. Katie had thought her grandmother was just telling old family stories. Now, holding the pendant in the darkness of an alien world, she wished she could ask what those words really meant. As she touched the carved stone, something strange happened. The pendant grew warm in her hands, warmer than it should have been from just her body heat. Katie looked down and gasped. A soft, gentle light was coming from inside the stone, like a candle flame trapped in rock. She almost dropped it in surprise, but the warmth felt good somehow, comforting, like a hug from someone who loved her. As she watched, the light pulsed. Softly and suddenly, her mind filled with images she had never seen before. There were people moving in slow, flowing patterns. Their bodies bent and twisted like water, but every movement had purpose and power. They were not fighting in the way Katie understood fighting. They were dancing, but it was a dance that could become deadly in an instant. The images came not like memories of something she had seen, but like remembering something she had always known but forgotten. Without thinking about it, Katie began to move. Her body seemed to know what to do, even though her mind did not understand. Her feet found positions that felt both new and familiar. Her arms moved in circles and lines that created patterns in the air. Her breathing changed, becoming deeper and more controlled. As she moved through the strange, flowing movements, Katie felt something she had not felt since arriving at the academy. She felt strong, not physically strong like the massive Krillians, or mentally strong like the brilliant Forthans. This was something different, something that came from deep inside her, from a place she had never known existed. The movements were not just physical. As Katie continued to follow the patterns that seemed to write themselves in her mind, she began to understand that this was something much more than just exercise or fighting. It was a way of connecting to forces that existed everywhere in the universe. Forces that most people could not see or feel, but that were as real as gravity or light. Her human ancestors had somehow discovered these forces thousands of years ago, long before they knew there were other intelligent beings among the stars. They had learned to work with them, to move with them, to draw strength from them. This knowledge had been passed down through generations, hidden in family traditions and old stories that seemed like harmless folklore. Katie practiced until the alien sun began to rise outside her window. When she finally stopped, she felt more awake and alive than she had in weeks. Her body was tired, but it was a good tired, like after a hard day of playing outside. Her mind felt clear and calm in a way she had never experienced before. She looked at the pendant one more time before tucking it back under her shirt. The light had faded, but she could still feel its warmth against her skin. Whatever had happened tonight, whatever she had discovered, she knew it was meant to be kept secret for now. Over the next few days, Katie began to practice the flowing movements every night after Zexhai fell asleep. Each session revealed new layers of understanding. The ancient art was not about overpowering enemies with brute strength. It was about reading the flow of energy around her, about finding balance in chaos, about drawing power from sources that her alien classmates did not even know existed. The training began to affect other parts of her life as well. In her classes, Katie found it easier to concentrate and think clearly. The complex alien mathematics that had confused her before began to make more sense. She started to see patterns and connections that she had missed before. Her unique human way of looking at problems sometimes led to solutions that surprised even her teachers. Professor Crix noticed The change during one particularly difficult lesson about space-time calculations. Katie raised her hand with a question. That showed she had been thinking about the problem in a completely different way from her alien classmates. Interesting approach, Miss Morrison, the tentacled professor said, his tone less dismissive than usual. Your perspective is quite unusual. Perhaps there is value in examining these concepts from a human viewpoint. It was not exactly praise, but it was the first time any teacher had suggested that being human might actually be helpful instead of just embarrassing. Katie still ate lunch alone and still faced daily mockery from students like Thamer. But inside, she was changing. The ancient knowledge flowing through her was teaching her patience and inner strength. The cruel words still hurt, but they did not cut as deeply as before. She was learning to find her center, to remain calm even when others tried to upset her. One evening, as she practiced her movements in the quiet of her room, Katie realized that she was not just learning a fighting style. She was connecting with something that had always been part of humanity, but had been forgotten by most people. Her ancestors had understood truths about the universe that even the advanced alien civilizations had not discovered. Maybe humans were not as primitive as everyone thought. Maybe they just understood the universe in a different way, a way that other species had never learned to see. Maybe being different was not the same as being inferior. As Katie moved through the ancient patterns, she felt the presence of all the women in her family who had come before her. Her grandmother, her great-grandmother, and many others stretching back through the centuries. They had all carried this knowledge, had all been fighters in their own quiet way. Now it was her turn to carry the tradition forward. She did not know yet how or when she would use what she was learning, but she could feel that the time was coming. Soon she would have a chance to show everyone at the academy that humans had their own kind of strength, their own kind of wisdom. And when that moment came, she would be ready. 3 weeks after Katie discovered the ancient art, something important happened at the academy. Every month, the school held a special competition called the Interspecies Challenge. Students from different worlds worked together on difficult problems that needed both smart thinking and creative solutions. This month's challenge was about saving people from a dangerous planet. The planet's gravity was acting strangely, pulling things in different directions at different times. Ships could not land safely, and the people living there were in great danger. The students had to find a way to get everyone off the planet. Before it was too late, Katie found herself placed on a team with some of the most arrogant students in the academy. Thamer was there, his golden skin glowing with confidence. Grixter, the massive rock-like student, cracked his knuckles and announced that his people's technology would obviously provide the best solution. There was also Veltar, a spider-like arachnoid who clicked and whistled whenever she thought someone was being stupid. The team met in one of the Academy's research rooms. Holographic displays showed the troubled planets spinning slowly in the air above their table. Red warning lights flashed around areas where the gravity was behaving badly. "This is simple," Grixter rumbled in his deep voice. "We build massive gravity control machines. My people have been using such devices for centuries. We can override the planet's natural forces and create safe landing zones." Thamer shook his golden head, crude and obvious. "My people would use energy manipulation to create stable corridors through space. We could transport people directly from the surface to waiting ships without any need for landing." Veltar clicked her mandibles together in what Katie had learned was amusement. "Both of your ideas would take years to build and cost more than most planets earn in a decade. Clearly, we need a more elegant solution using quantum displacement technology." Katie listened to her teammates argue while she studied the problem from every angle. The holographic planet showed her something that the others seemed to be missing. The gravity was not just acting randomly. There was a pattern to it, like a rhythm or a dance. The changes followed a flow that reminded her of the movements she had been practicing each night. While her teammates designed increasingly complex machines and weapons to fight against the planet's gravity, Katie began to see a different approach. What if they worked with the gravity instead of against it? What if they used the planet's own energy to help move people to safety? What about using the gravity waves themselves? Katie suggested quietly. The arguing stopped. All three of her teammates turned to stare at her, as if she had just suggested they all grow wings and fly to the planet themselves. "Excuse me?" Thamer said, his musical voice dripping with condescension. Did the primitive human just try to contribute to a scientific discussion? Katie felt her cheeks grow warm, but she pressed on. The gravity changes follow a pattern. If we can read that pattern, we could use it like riding a wave instead of fighting against it. We could move people during the gravity flows, instead of trying to stop them. Grixter made a sound like grinding stone that might have been laughter. Ridiculous. No species has ever successfully harnessed raw gravitational forces without massive technological infrastructure. The idea that we could simply ride gravity waves is absurd. The human clearly does not understand basic physics, Veltar added, her clicking becoming more rapid and agitated. Perhaps we should assign her simpler tasks, like organizing our research materials. Katie wanted to argue, but she had learned to pick her battles. She continued working on her own solution, while her teammates pursued their complicated technological approaches. Using the Academy's computers, she ran simulations that showed how the gravity waves could be predicted and used to move people and ships safely. The more she worked on it, the more excited she became. Her approach would not require any massive machines or years of construction. It could be put into action within days, using simple equipment that most spacefaring civilizations already had. The key was understanding the rhythm of the gravity, waves and moving with them instead of against them. When presentation day arrived, teams from all over the Academy gathered in the great auditorium. Important aliens from the Galactic Council had come to judge the competition. Admiral Vexara, a high-ranking official with large compound eyes and a reputation for being very smart, sat in the front row taking notes. Katie's team was called last. Thamer and Grixtor presented their solution with great confidence. They had designed an impressive system of force field generators and gravity manipulators that could create safe zones on the planet's surface. Their presentation included detailed technical diagrams and cost projections that made some of the judges nod approvingly. When they finished, Admiral Vexara raised one of her 4 hands. "Impressive work," she said in her translated voice. "Your solution shows excellent technical knowledge. However, I noticed that your timeline suggests implementation would take approximately 3 years and cost more than the planetary defense budget of 12 systems. Did all team members contribute equally to this proposal?" Thamer's golden features took on a superior expression. "The human provided some minor assistance with basic calculations," he said without even looking at Katie. "Of course, we could not expect meaningful contributions from such a primitive species." Admiral Vexara's compound eyes focused on Katie. "I see. However, I noticed there is an alternative approach outlined in your appendix. The method using gravitational harmonics rather than resistance. Whose work was this?" The auditorium fell silent. Katie felt hundreds of alien eyes focused on her. Her heart pounded, but she remembered the flowing movements she practiced each night, the way they taught her to find calm in the center of chaos. "That was mine," Katie said, standing up slowly. "Fascinating." Admiral Vexara continued, studying her notes. "Your approach could be operational within days rather than years, uses equipment most civilizations already possess, and actually becomes more efficient as the gravitational anomalies intensify. How did you develop this solution?" Before Katie could answer, Thamer stepped forward. His golden skin was glowing brighter with anger and embarrassment. Admiral Vexara, surely you cannot seriously consider that a primitive human child could devise a superior solution to the greatest minds of civilized species? We have been mastering space travel and advanced physics for thousands of years. Humans have barely learned to leave their own planet. The insult hung in the air like a physical thing. Katie felt the familiar warmth of her pendant against her chest. She thought about all the weeks of mockery, all the cruel laughter, all the times she had been made to feel worthless and stupid. She thought about her grandmother's words about the women in their family being fighters. Something inside her shifted, like a door opening that had been locked for a very long time. The ancient knowledge flowing through her was not just about movements and energy. It was about standing up when the moment was right, about showing strength when others expected weakness. Katie looked directly at Thamer, then at the assembled crowd of aliens who had spent months treating her like an embarrassment to intelligence everywhere. You want to see what humans are really capable of? Katie asked, her voice carrying clearly through the silent auditorium. Then let's settle this properly. The challenge was spoken. The moment her grandmother had prepared her for had finally arrived. The great auditorium buzzed with excitement and confusion. Never in the Academy's long history had a student challenged another to combat. The very idea seemed impossible, especially coming from a small human girl challenging one of the golden Celestials. Admiral Vesara's compound eyes studied Katie with new interest. After a moment of consideration, she nodded slowly. Very well. Under Academy rules, formal challenges may be accepted for educational purposes. However, this will be conducted under controlled conditions with full safety measures. Within an hour, the Academy's gymnasium had been transformed into an arena. Protective barriers surrounded a large circular space in the center. Medical personnel from several different species stood ready to help if anyone got hurt. Students and teachers crowded into the observation areas, whispering in dozens of different languages. Most of the watchers expected to see the human child quickly defeated and humiliated. Some felt sorry for Katie and wished she had not made such a foolish challenge. Others, like Thamer's followers, looked forward to seeing the presumptuous human put in her place once and for all. Thamer entered the arena like a golden god descending from heaven. His skin glowed brighter with excitement, and his perfect features showed complete confidence. He had trained in the ancient celestial fighting arts since childhood and had never lost a match to any student at the Academy. His people's combat style was famous throughout the galaxy for its beauty and deadly effectiveness. Katie walked to the center of the arena wearing simple Academy training clothes. She looked tiny compared to Thamer's impressive 7-foot frame. Many watchers shook their heads or made sounds of pity in their alien languages. The small pendant around her neck caught the arena lights and seemed to sparkle with inner fire. Last chance to surrender, primitive, Thamer called out, raising his hands as golden energy began to dance around his fingers. I would hate to damage relations between our species because of your foolish pride. Katie did not answer with words. Instead, she closed her eyes and took a deep breath, feeling the ancient knowledge flow through her mind and body. When she opened her eyes again, something had changed. She still looked like the same small human girl, but there was a new quality to her presence. She seemed more solid somehow, more real than everything around her. Begin, announced instructor. Vexno from her position at the edge of the arena. Thamer moved like liquid gold, launching himself forward with incredible speed. Energy crackled from his fingertips as he aimed a powerful blast at Katie. The attack should have ended the fight immediately, knocking the human girl unconscious or worse. Instead, something impossible happened. Katie shifted her position just slightly, and the energy bolt passed harmlessly by her. She had not blocked it or dodged it in any normal way. Somehow, she had simply been in a different place when the attack arrived, as if she had known exactly where it would go before Thamer had even fired it. Confused but not discouraged, Thamer pressed his attack. He launched a series of energy blasts while closing in for hand-to-hand combat. His movements were perfect, each strike aimed with deadly precision. But Katie flowed around them like water, never seeming to hurry or strain, always being exactly where the attacks were not. The watching aliens fell completely silent. They were seeing something that should have been impossible. The human child was not just avoiding Thamer's attacks. She was somehow changing their direction without touching them, using the golden boy's own energy against him. What kind of trick is this? Thamer demanded, his perfect features showing frustration and growing fear. Katie finally spoke, her voice calm and clear. No trick, just something my people learned a long time ago. She began to move more actively, her hands tracing patterns in the air that seemed to disturb the very space around her. The ancient art her grandmother had passed down was not just about physical movement. It was about understanding and working with the invisible forces that connected all things in the universe. As Thamer launched another desperate attack, Katie extended one small hand and gently touched his wrist. The effect was immediate and shocking. The Celestial's golden energy reversed direction, his own power turning against him. He was thrown backward across the arena floor, landing hard against the protective barriers. Gasps and cries of amazement echoed through the gymnasium. Even the most advanced alien civilizations had never seen anything like this demonstration. Katie was not using any visible technology or energy source. She was working with forces that most species had never learned to perceive. Thamer struggled to his feet, his golden skin now pale with shock and exhaustion. "Impossible," he whispered. "No primitive species could possess such knowledge." "What are you?" Katie walked toward him, still moving in the flowing patterns of the ancient art. "I'm human," she said simply. "And humans have been studying these forces for thousands of years. We just learned to work with them instead of trying to control them." With a final gesture, Katie extended her hand toward Thamer. This time, it was not an attack, but a demonstration. The air around him shimmered, and suddenly he could see what she saw. The invisible connections that linked all matter and energy became visible. The underlying harmony that governed everything from the smallest particles to the largest stars revealed itself. For a moment, Thamer experienced the universe as humans had learned to perceive it, not as a collection of separate objects to be dominated, but as a single interconnected whole to be understood and respected. The revelation was so overwhelming that he sank to his knees. I apologize," he whispered, his arrogance completely gone. "I did not understand." None of us understood. Admiral Vessara stood up from her seat, her compound eyes wide with amazement. "Young human," she said formally, "what you have demonstrated suggests that your species possesses knowledge that may predate most of our civilizations. This changes everything we thought we knew about human capabilities." Katie looked up at the assembled crowd of aliens who had mocked and dismissed her for so long. Now they watched her with respect, wonder, and perhaps a little fear. She felt no desire for revenge or cruelty. The ancient art had taught her that true strength came from helping others, not hurting them. "My grandmother always said that humans are good at surviving," Katie said to the silent crowd. "We learned to work with the universe instead of trying to conquer it. Maybe that's something we can share with each other." In the days that followed, everything changed at Zenith Academy. Scientists and philosophers from across the galaxy requested meetings with Katie to discuss human approaches to understanding cosmic forces. The Academy established new courses to study human philosophy and what they began calling harmonic physics. More importantly, applications from Earth increased dramatically. Other human children would soon join Katie at the academy, bringing their own unique perspectives and insights. The galaxy was finally ready to accept that humans had something valuable to contribute. Fainmer became one of Katie's closest friends and most eager students. The humbling experience had taught him that wisdom came from remaining open to new ideas, not from assuming his own superiority. Together, they developed new approaches that combined alien technology with human understanding, creating solutions neither species could have achieved alone. As Katie prepared for her second year at the academy, she often touched her grandmother's pendant and smiled. Humanity's greatest strength was not their technology or their physical abilities. It was their capacity to find connection and harmony in the midst of chaos, to see unity where others saw only separation. The girl who had once been mocked as primitive had shown the galaxy that sometimes the greatest wisdom comes from the most unexpected places.